Javier Milei, a libertarian outsider, will become Argentina's next president.
All good Argentines, because today the reconstruction of Argentina begins. Today is a historic night for Argentina. Thank you very much to everyone who came. Thank you to everyone who made this possible.
Official results show Milei with nearly 56% of the vote versus 44% for Economy Minister Sergio Massa, who has conceded defeat in the presidential runoff.
I want to tell you that obviously the results are not what we expected, and I have communicated with Javier Milei to congratulate him and wish him luck, because he is the president that most Argentines elected for the next 4 years.
While Massa held his spot, poverty in Argentina increased as inflation soared to more than 140%, and Milei, a far-right libertarian, ran on reining in inflation, slashing the size of the government, and adopting the U.S. dollar, something he called economic shock therapy. Argentina is the second largest economy in South America.
We need a change. We need this government. We have now to end once and for all.
Milei replaces outgoing center-left President Alberto Fernandez and faces an angry electorate that earlier expressed little confidence in either candidate.
I'm not interested in either candidate, but you have to opt for something. That's the reality. There is no other.
Milei's challenges are enormous. He faces empty government coffers, a $44 billion debt program with International Monetary Fund, and inflation nearing 150%. It may soon become clear if the shock therapy he called for is the right prescription. Milei takes office on December 10th. Craig Boswell, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Rémi Piet. He's senior partner at Embelli Advisory and joins us now from Paris. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Right. My pleasure.
Let's start from the economic shock that Milei has been advocating for, slashing government spending, replacing the peso entirely with the US dollar. Can all of that be implemented, and what would the consequences of all of that be for the economy in the country?
I mean, Milei has been made no secrets actually of his economic reforms and the decisions. I mean, he's claimed himself to be a radical liberal, and he actually is advocating for a series of drastic changes from what has been in place from the Peronist leadership before his arrival. Can it be done? There's two answers to this. First of all, changing the peso, dropping the peso for the US dollar is something that has been done in Latin America over the last few decades in different countries. I mean, Panama is using the dollar. In 2000, also Ecuador has turned, away from the currency towards a dollarization of the economy. The problem will be of his capacity to actually get those changing passed through Congress, because Milei doesn't have a majority in Congress in Argentina today. He does have the support from the traditional right-wing parties that has been supporting his candidacy in the second round of the presidential elections. But many of these will actually follow up his radicalism in terms of economic policies, when these can actually be, supported by a series of potential discontentment in the streets from everyday citizens that might have impact, especially when you talk about slashing, public spendings in terms of support to transportation or support to the poorest parts of the society. And there might be some temptations from the center-right parties to actually move away from Milei and not support him in Congress, therefore preventing him to pass the reforms. And then again, the second level of potential obstacle is the fact that a lot of political decision and economic decision making has being made at the regional level in Argentina, and a series of different local governors do not support Milei's policies, and Milei will have limited capacities in changing a series of decisions such as environmental regulations or support to foreign investment in a series of provinces, especially let's say in the mining sector or in the export-driven economy of the agro-industrial complex in Argentina.
There's a political difficulty as well. From an economic perspective, how do you manage the fight against triple-digit inflation that we have in Argentina, stagnating economy, we should say looming recession, public finances in serious difficulties, but at the same time, widespread poverty?
I mean, it is a very difficult equation that Argentina's presidents have tried to solve for the last few decades. Unfortunately, the key element here is an element of trust, whether or not the governments are able to fulfill their obligations toward international markets, or are being the victim of speculations or other economic positions that are antagonistic to the well-being of Argentina. The role of the IMF is key in that level. I mean, the IMF has been involved on and off in Argentina, has done a series of recommendations that sometimes were not the right ones for Argentina, and therefore are highly unpopular in Argentina. But Milei will have to be able to strike a deal with the IMF in terms of rescheduling the macroeconomic debt that the country is facing, and be able to provide a series of measures that would reassure the markets and and investors that his policies are actually well grounded into the long run, and will be followed up by a series of incentives for investors. Because on the other side, when you're actually moving away from the your capacity to develop your own monetary policy by adopting the dollar, that means that you actually do not have in your hands anymore the kind of triggers and incentives for export sectors, such as the meat sector, which is very important in Argentina, or other export-driven sectors that actually will not be able to benefit from a lower peso in front of other markets. For other sectors that are labelized in the US dollar, the mining sector, the energy sector, I mean, those are maybe will receive the positive of these movements and decisions from Milei to be much more drastic and radical in the short term. In the long run, you also need to make sure that some of the radical decisions from Milei to slash down governments, to probably do not have any key and clear decisions in terms of, as I was saying, environmental regulations, but also diversification of the economy. This might actually be devil in the details, by the sense that it might actually lead to some reputational risk for international investors, or potential environmental degradation that would actually further degrade the image of Argentina on international markets and for international investors in key sectors.